That's one option. She's a delusional Pisces who thinks that, or she's shallow and thus she's coming up with this conspiracy theory instead of actually saying, I'm not attracted to you, Daniel. I have finished episodes 4 through 6 of Love is Blind, season 8, and I guess before I get to all of the actual couples, all of the actual boring couples that have moved on to the next phase of the series, or the season, let's talk about the quad triangle that got a lot of airtime, only for none of them to work out. And I guess maybe that is why I got so much airtime. Madison continues to get a lot of blame for being manipulative. And she has done her share of manipulation with the whole Mason situation. I think that Madison did really like Mason to an extent. They did not have as deep of a connection as her and Alex, in my opinion. They got along talking about sex a lot, and I think that is actually why Mason was so into Madison. Being such a dude, she was very sexual in talks with him. The whole cream pie stuff was a lot. And I think she used to see Meg coming back from all the dates with Mason, always happy about it, always feeling like that's her number one and that she's Mason's number one. And I think Madison, being the attention seeker that she is, wanted to make sure she kept Mason's attention, only to try and drop him last minute and go for her stronger connection in Alex. But Mason is not innocent in this. I've said this the whole time, that Mason is not only a people pleaser, but he has a fake side too. And this man, when Madison, you could call it manipulation or whatever, but I think Madison was actually doing the same thing Mason was doing. They were both dating two different people. They both had two different number ones. And was Madison being a hypocrite about doing the same thing and getting mad at Mason for it? Yes, she certainly was. But Mason sat there and told Madison basically that she was his number one. And then after Madison decided to break it up, he was like, oh, actually, Meg was my number one this whole time. I just felt like I had to tell you, Madison. Like I had to validate you, Madison. And I'm glad for Meg not falling for that. For him to then go to Meg and say, he just felt like he had to validate Madison, but you've been my number one the whole time. I don't think Mason ever wanted to make that decision. Similar to another guy that we'll get to, he never wanted to man up and break it off with one of the women. And so they both kind of did it for him. And then Madison tried to go to Alex, and Alex felt some kind of way too with the whole thing and broke things up with Madison. And thus the quad triangle that got a lot of airtime, none of them make it to the next phase. But we will see them again later in the season at a party, I guess. Whoop-de-doo. Moving on to the actual couples that have moved on. Gonna give my thoughts and opinions and some astrology because that's what I like to talk about, so deal with it. Ben and Sarah. Ben is a Libra, Sarah is a Capricorn. A lot of the talk online with this couple is Sarah bringing up her liberal stances because her sister is a part of the LGBTQ community, and Ben is kind of laissez-faire about the whole thing. The bigger issue was they're in Minnesota, and she brought up Black Lives Matter. She brought up the whole George Floyd situation, and Ben kind of acted like he knew nothing of it, which is just not the case. So the speculation is that, Ben is some super Republican that is problematic. And maybe that is the case. We might find that out as the show goes along. other people getting upset at Sarah for being such a fake ally, to bring up all these issues, and then Ben's answers are terrible with the issues, and then she still ends up getting with him. So the conundrum is, can you really, being in a relationship with someone who has opposite political views as you, in theory, maybe, but if you really care about the social issues that you're bringing up, like Sarah supposedly does, and if she really cares about her sister, like Sarah supposedly does, if Ben is problematic in that sense, then I think Sarah is being a stupid idiot in trying to make this work with Ben, because I don't think her family, or at least her sister, would be happy with that case. But this is all speculation, and we really don't know where Ben stands. Ben might just be totally apathetic with politics, and maybe somehow he doesn't know the whole George Floyd situation despite being in Minnesota. That point I don't agree with. I highly doubt that was the case with him. Bringing in astrology, though, Ben being a Libra, that's such a Libra tactic. To just act like he has no opinion, act like he is just go with the flow. And yeah, in other Libra fashion, when he met Sarah face to face, he was so excited by her beauty, borderline horny. And I think from Ben is just shallow. He has no real opinions, no real things that he feels passionate about, other than the fact that Sarah was actually hot and now he's excited about it. So to me, it's a very shallow relationship from both of them. And I look forward to zero from them going forward. I have nothing to look forward to with these two in future episodes. Next up, Dave and Lauren. Dave is an Aries, Lauren is a Sagittarius. Somehow, despite both being fire signs, they are two of the lamest fire signs you will ever find. I think Dave has a lot of Aries qualities of being very... How do I put this without offending Aries? He's very obtuse in his own viewpoints, where I think he gets really caught up in selfishness of what he thinks is right for him. And I don't think at any point in all of this process he has seen anything from any of the other women that he's talking to sides. He had a triangle himself. Molly, too, was a Sagittarius, the much more likable Sagittarius. She was the Sagittarius that... very independent. When Dave, similar to Mason, like I talked about earlier, when Dave was trying to make Molly break up with him, instead of manning up and doing that, she called him out on his shit. Typical Sagittarius there, the good kind of Sagittarius. Lauren has the negative qualities of a Sagittarius, where she was basically in a competition with herself this whole time, because she only knew that Molly was going after Dave. Molly had no idea that she was the other woman Dave was talking to. So she got in her own head and really tried to fight hard for this guy that I don't think is serious about finding anything. And if he is... He's putting a lot of stock into what his sister thinks, which seems to be the storyline we're going to get going forward from them. Also not interesting to me, but I'm going to try and stick with the show. Yeah, don't like either of them. As I said in my last video, if Madison was manipulative, Lauren was too. She did the same thing, except she was much worse, because... she did it far more sly, whereas Madison was more aggressive. Madison was more attention-seeking, in my opinion. I don't think Madison was as serious about it. She was more playful about it with Mason, in my opinion. Just kind of playing him with sexuality. Whereas Lauren really played on David's feelings, if he has any, and thus got him to not man up to break up with Molly so that she would break up with him. Anyway, don't like either of them. Next up, Daniel and Taylor. Daniel is a Taurus. Taylor is a Pisces. They were pretty boring overall, let's be real. Until the end there in episode 6. Taylor was a Pisces this entire time. And as a fellow Pisces, I can speak for this. All Taylor did was cry a lot. And Daniel, being the patient Taurus that he is, who I think is actually very serious about settling down like a Taurus, is accepting of Taylor. But then when Taylor and Daniel meet, Taylor goes into a meltdown. And to me, she is a typical annoying Pisces where, the crying aside, after this meeting, suddenly she's so delusional that she thinks, allegedly, that Daniel added her on Instagram and then unfollowed her. And then somehow he knew that she was going to get on the show and he also got on the show. And then he knew that voice was her and he recognized the name. And she's going down this whole conspiracy theory. Or, that's one option. She's a delusional Pisces who thinks that. Or she's shallow and his height, even though he's average height, is actually affecting her, and she doesn't want to look bad on national TV like Hannah last season, and thus she's coming up with this conspiracy theory instead of actually saying, I'm not attracted to you, Daniel. She doesn't want to look like the bad guy. She wants to play victim. Making Pisces look bad. Taylor's looking like an ass clown. Will they even make it more in the season with this conspiracy theory? I don't think they will. I think this is going to be her playing a victim and ending it before they go even further. Speaking of Pisces, Devin is also a Pisces. Virginia's a Capricorn. They end up together after things fell apart for Devin and Brittany. The whole Brittany being bi seemed to affect Devin a little bit. But I think it also affected her. I think she is not certain with her own sexuality, and I don't think she was ready to settle down with Devin, and Devin clearly was not ready to settle down with her. So Devin ends up with Virginia. Going with astrology, in theory, he might be too emotional for the Capricorn that is Virginia, but she seems very down to earth like a typical earth sign. Whereas Devin, who told his story to both women that he was addicted to Advil. I mean, not making fun of addictions, first of all. But as a Pisces, once again, we get this reputation for being addicts. And I thought I've heard it all until I heard that Devin was addicted to Advil. I don't know if that is true or if he was actually addicted to harder pain medicine and thus this is just what he wanted to say on national TV. Or if he was truly addicted to Advil, and that is what made him so emotional with both women being an emotional Pisces. I think, like all of us Pisces, we long for a significant other, for romance, for a relationship. And I think Devin and Virginia can work out. Their meeting was very calm, cool, collected. I thought they fit very well. Because it was so peaceful, that gives me hope that maybe they will actually work out, but we'll see. And lastly, I already talked about them when they first met up, Joey and Monica, but just to talk about astrology, Joey's a Taurus, Monica's an Aries. I think that's two compatible signs, but judging by some of the drama we're going to see, because Joey has OCD, which can be very hard for people without OCD to deal with, They will have issues there. I still like that they're so alike and so compatible, but I'm sure there'll be enough drama that they just might not make it on this show. Overall, not very pleased with all the couples going forward. We spend a lot of time on the quad triangle. We'll see them again at the party, but I don't know if that's enough to keep me interested. Um, I think Madison, Meg, Mason were pretty good television. Alex, not so much. He's a bump on a log, Taurus. There's a lot of Taurus men, and maybe that's why it was so boring. Um, yeah, that's all for now. We'll see what the next episodes bring. Hopefully, not as boring.